Welcome, everyone. I'm going to welcome everybody to the SGWASA Board Meeting of Directors, November 14th, 2023. I now call this meeting to order. We have our board secretary back, and we're all grateful that she's back. Our former board secretary did a wonderful job. I want to thank you, sir. And
Thank you.
You're welcome. Can we have a roll call?
Yes. Mr. Gooch is absent. Ms. Kaczynski,
Present.
Ms. Jordan is absent. Mr. Karen is absent. Mr. McKellar,
Here.
Mr. McLam,
Present.
Mr. Way.
Present.
All are accounted for.
Thank you. We have a quorum, and I understand Councilperson Jordan will be joining us shortly. She's just running a little late. The invocation will be done by Commissioner Kenneth McLam and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Webb.
Let us pray. Lord, be with us this evening as we conduct the business of SGWASA. Let us do what is best for all customers. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can everybody hear us in the audience? That's Santa Claus. Everybody good? All right. Are there any adjustments or adjustments before we approve the meeting agenda? No, I'm not hearing any.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Yeah. All right. Review and approval of the minutes from the October 10th board meeting. I assume everybody's had a chance to look at them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. All right. We'll move on to public comments.
I've not received any public comment.
All right. Does anybody wish to speak? No? All right. Board discussion items. I would
There is none.
see that we don't have any discussion items listed. There is a discussion I would like to have during closed session if our city attorney is okay with that.
Sure.
All right, so I will move my discussion to closed session. Next on the agenda, our finance director will present the fiscal year 2023 audit report.
Actually, I'm just going to do an intro,
Okay.
and then we'll turn it over to Carly Evans, who is the auditor on audit. As the board knows, we are required each year to do an annual independent audit. The board this year is the 6/30/23 audit to the firm of Winston Williams Creech Evans and Company. Carly Evans was again our lead auditor on the audit, and the financial highlights are kind of in your legislative memo, but most of those will be covered in the presentation. So at this time, I'll just turn it over to Carly Evans to do the presentation, and then we'll address any questions the board has afterwards.
Welcome, Ms. Evans.
Thank you.
Good evening.
I'll start with just a review statement to the next slide. The 2023 audit was a federal single audit this year. That meant there were federal expenditures more than $750,000. Last year was Yellow Book, which was between $100,000 and $750,000. 2023 was an unqualified audit opinion. That means we had no findings to report for the financial statements or for the scheduled expenditures of federal and state awards. And the report has been approved by the LGC, and the data collection report has been submitted to the Federal Clearinghouse. That next shows the statement of net position, a summary of that, which is Exhibit 1 in the audit report. Total assets and deferred outflows at June 30th were $100,472,000, and total liabilities and deferred inflows at June 30th were $34,120,000, which left net position at $66,368,000. That was up overall $6.3 million over last year. And the assets and deferred outflows were up 4.6 million. Most of that was either increase in CIP over the past year or an increase in the cash. And I've got a cash slide later we'll look at. And then for the total liabilities and deferred inflows, they were down 1.7 million over the prior year. And most of that is due to paying down the debt. The bonds and the loans outstanding were down 2.5 million. And I've got a chart on that later too. The next slide summarizes the statement of activities, which is Exhibit 2 of the audit report. And for the year 2023, revenues total $17,932,000. Expenditures total $11,577,000, which left a change in that position, an increase of $6.35 million. Part of that revenue expenditure differences, there was an increase in the ARPA grant of $1.65 million in the revenues. Investment income increased $688,000 over last year, and operating revenues increased $535,000. So on the next slide, we'll look at the revenues by source. The largest section was wastewater. That accounted for 50% of the revenues, and that number was $8,937,000. The second largest category was water, and that was 2% or 32%, or $5,777,000. And then the ARPA grant totaled 11% of the revenues, and that was $1.892 million. Investment earnings made up $716,000. There were other revenues of $456,000, and there was contributed capital, which was 1%, totaling $152,000. So total revenues for the year were $17,932,000. Then the next slide should show the revenues budget versus actual. You see the original budget was $13,676,000. Final budget was $20,804,000. And actual revenues came in at $17,780,000, which overall was $3 million under budget. And the largest difference in the budget and the actual was the ARPA grant money. We had, I think, zero for the original budget. Final budget was $5.2 million, and the actual receipts during the year were $1.9 million. So then the next slide shows the water and sewer revenues, which is just a normal operating revenue. So you see wastewater increased $428,000 over the prior year, which is about a 5% increase. And then the water revenues increased $118,000 over the prior year, which is about a 2% increase. And then next one moves on to the expenditures. 76 of the expenditures were operating expenditures. They totaled $12,331,000. And then 10% of the expenditures were for bond debt, which was $1.5 million. 11% was for loan debt, which was $1.79 million. And then rounding out the 3% were the payments in town of Button, which was $500,000. So total expenditures for the year were $16,145,000. They were down $2.9 million over the prior year. And next looks at budget versus actual for the expenditures. The original budget was $14.321 million. Final budget was $22.596 million. Actual expenditures was $16,145,000. So overall, they were $6.4 million under the budget. Then next is fund balance. And fund balance is broken down into two categories. Net investment in capital assets made up 55% of fund balance, which was $36,442,000. And then unrestricted fund balance was 45%, which was $29,926,000 for a total fund balance at the end of the year of $66,368,000. Next, I have a slide of cash at the end of the year. The total cash at the end of June was $29,575,000, which was up about $5 million over last year. And then next slide on kind of the flip side of that are the outstanding loans for the year. And I won't read all those out, but there were no new loans during the year. So the outstanding loans at the end of the year was $16,910,000. That balance was down $1.4 million over the prior year. And then next slide was the bonds outstanding. Same thing here. There were no new bonds during the year. The total at the end of the year, the balance was $13,157,000, and outstanding bonds decreased a little over $1 million from the prior year due to pay down on the debt. And I think that's all I have for my slides. I'll leave it to see if anyone has any questions, either about slides or for me or Richard.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Thank you.
Just a comment, if I may, after the board members have any questions or comments for us this evening? None? Again, Carlene, thank you very much for the presentation, the fine work that you did for SGWASA this year. And Richard, also thank you to you and your team for the excellent work that you did this year to support the audit, as well as the great financials through this past year. Board members, I did provide you with a copy of the audit, so you do have that. I would also like to mention that the FY 22-23 audit is posted on the SGWASA website for anybody to take a look at. That information has been out there, I think, for over a week. Overall, I think we had a very good audit this last year and a very good operating year. The board understands how busy we are with all the projects that we're doing and all the financials that we have out there as well. We've been lucky, as hard working as we've been, to receive some grants, and we continue to invest that back into the utility system as we should. Thank you for allowing me to make those comments.
You're welcome. I'm glad to see the loans outstanding are dropping. I see a major change in some of them, and it's in the 4 years that I've been here. Thank you so much for the finance department and all that you do. I appreciate it very much. And thank you, Ms. Evans, for your presentation. All right, we'll move to item number 10, which we've all been holding our breath for.
We need a motion for right. Would you back up, please?
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
Accept the audit.
Yes, there's exactly.
A motion to accept the audit.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The audit is accepted.
Okay.
We've been holding our breath for this one, Mr. Ballmer, and I'm so glad that you're presenting it. It looks really good, and I'm
Wonderful
hoping
audit of the wonderful first
that
quarter.
smile. I love it.
You just love numbers.
I do.
It's a night of numbers, so we should be fine. So that kind of concluded last fiscal year's numbers. We're looking at the first quarter for this fiscal year 23-24, which is July 1st through September 30th, 2023. Keep that in mind as we're now in November, and of course October has occurred, but these are as of September 30th, 2023. You've got a table of contents, so we'll cover 4 sections. In the first presentation each year, we prefer to put the budget ordinance in there to remind the board where we started, what you approved. That's kind of the starting point, and then we'll go through the revenues, the expenses, and of course, we separate out the I-85 collection system project since that has grant money involved as a separate section. As always, if you have any questions, just stop me during the slides. There'll also be a section at the end for questions, and we can always go back to any slides you have questions on that. Just to recap the ordinance, I won't read all the ordinance out, but you can see that there's a balanced budget of $15,289,655. So that was our starting point. You can see that we were using no fund balance to balance that ordinance. So it's a very clean balanced ordinance. Next slide. For the water revenue. Okay, so we'll go into the revenues now. Just a reminder, as we go into the revenues, keep in mind that the board approved a new rate model, which is a new rate structure this year. So we are monitoring that closely, of course, as we go through the year to see how it holds, revenue projections hold to the model, and how they compare to prior years based on the old model. And I'm happy to report tonight that right now they're looking good, as we'll see as we go through each slide. We hope and trust that that pattern will continue as we go through the year. Just as a reminder, in the first quarter, you hope that all your revenues are 25% or higher. That means we're on track, and we'll see that that's holding steady. So the water revenues were budgeted at $5.7 million. You can see that first quarter was $1.6 million, 28%. So we're right above that 25%, slightly above where we want to be. Those water usage drops a little bit in the second quarter during the winter, so that's good that we're starting out a little bit above the 25%. Sewer revenue was budgeted $8.8 million. The actual is $2.4 million. Again, 28%. So we're looking good there as well. Next slide. Non-billing revenue. As a reminder, that's most of the fees. All the different fees that we collect. And that was budgeted at $303,500. First quarter is $84,000, 28%. The only fee that's involved in that that's running below projections right now are your connect tap fees. That's not unexpected as we are seeing very good growth in the service area. And you'll see when we get to system development fees, the same trend occurs to those. Interest income was budgeted at $486,155. You can see that in the first quarter, we've collected $318,575, which is 66%. So you'll see a budget amendment coming probably in the December budget amendment to adjust that revenue stream. One reason for that trend is that if you'll recall back when we started the fiscal year 23-24 budget in January, February of last year, interest rates were still at zero. They were projected to be increased, but not to the level that we see them at now. So we passed the budget with a much lower projection of interest rates. So that's a great thing. And we saw the same thing last fiscal year in June. We have an adjustment last year to adjust the interest. So we're back to having significant interest revenue versus zero interest revenue, which is a good thing.
We had zero from COVID too, didn't we?
We have had zero for several years, essentially. One of the other things that we're doing is we are moving some cash between the checking account and the excess cash that we don't need right away. We're moving that to North Carolina Capital Management Trust to maximize benefits for the interest only because their rates are slightly higher. And we've negotiated with Truist last month to change some factors on our bank accounts with them to earn interest on the accounts that we have at a higher rate as well. So we're working to increase those revenues even further. The next slide is system development fees. You'll see that we budget zero because we had none in the pipeline at the time that we did budget, and we've collected only $7,644. Of course, that's very low. And at year end, any system development fees, I'll just remind the board that you will pass a resolution to earmark those for a specific project. So that's another reason we budget them at zero, so they don't skew your operating budget. Next slide. This is a slide that I think we started putting in last year, which I think is very helpful. And it tracks fund balance through the year, lets you see where we started. The budget ordinance was using zero fund balance, as we just saw when the ordinance was held. And then it tracks all the budget amendments that the board passed 1 through 4 for the first quarter of this year. And so the ending fund balance, we're now using 1 million, slightly over 1.9 million in fund balance. But one of the things I put in blue there is of that, most of it's CIP, which is not that concerning because you've set aside CIP money for that purpose. So the executive director moves that money to projects as they're needed. You see that we're only affecting, out of that 1.9 million, you're only really affecting operating fund balance by roughly 166,000, which is very good and much better than I think last year at this time. And that's the revenues. And any questions on the revenues?
Looking great.
Not good. Not many questions when they're looking.
Looks good.
Yeah, when they're on the.
It looks like we've got a strong first quarter and the rate structure is holding exactly as Reptel told us.
Mhm.
And that's good. I know we've all holding our breath till this day to make sure that it was exactly what we thought it was, and I'm glad.
We won't sigh a breath of relief yet, but
No,
it's
yet.
easy to at least let a little bit of breath out. We'll watch it closely for the next 2 to 3 quarters to make sure, and I think then we'll have a much more comfort level with it. Going into the expenses. Of course, with the expenses, you would prefer those departments be 25% or less. Flip side of the revenues. On the expense slides, you'll see that one of the things we do, since revenues very rarely change during the year other than interest change this year, expenses do change during the year as you approve budget amendments. So what we started doing at the end of last year was giving you the original budget and the amended budget as it stands at the end of the quarter cumulatively. That way you can see the adjustments the board has made to the budget by department. So you'll see that the budget as it stands for the admin department is almost 500,000. And at the end of the quarter, we spent 158,000, which is 18%, well below the 25. Human resources, the budget still stands as originally passed at 137,308. You'll see that we expended nearly 30,000 in the first quarter, 22%. I'll say on some of these
vacancies.
I'm sorry.
Is that because of vacancy?
No, the human resource. You mean is it lower high?
No. While we're high because we have vacancy.
No, the 22% is coming from some of these departments, and I'll try to highlight them as we go through. One of the things in the Human Resources Department is their software to track the evaluation and performance evaluations for the employees. That comes due every July 1st for renewal. So we upfront pay that. And you can see that as we go through some of the departments. That also skews the admin department because all the financial software is there. So we pay that upfront cost in July. So even with those paid, we're still below the 25%, which is a great thing. And you'll see that level out as we go through the year. Next slide. The engineering department is where we have the large vacancies. You'll see the budget is 406,000 almost, and we only spent 40,000. And that is due to the vacancies in that department that the board's aware of. So we're only at 10% of that department. And that's to be expected. In the billing and collections department, the budget remains as it was originally passed at 504,421. We've expended 107,928, 29%. Again, if we took out the software renewals that occurred in July, that would be well below 20%. So we're still well below the 25. Next slide. The water treatment department, which is water intake and water treatment plant. The budget as it stands at the end of the quarter is slightly above $2 million. We've expended 490,603, 24%. That one's a little closer than we would like it to be, but still below the 25%, and we're hoping that will level out. There were a couple of large repair projects that were done at the beginning of the fiscal year. Next slide, wastewater plant. The budget is just above 2.3 million. We've expended 453,305, 19%. So that one's still in good shape as well. Utility maintenance. And I'll remind you that includes several departments within the budget, which is water line maintenance, sewer line maintenance, pump station maintenance, and meter reading. The budget is 2.8 million. We've expended just below 510,000, 18%. So even in the maintenance department, we're still looking good on that department. The depreciation board and other department is mainly comprised of three components: depreciation expense, board pay, and insurance, both property and liability and workers' comp. Those are paid at the beginning of the year. The property and liability and workers' comp come due July 1st. They are a substantial payment in that department. So you will see that of the 2.5 million budgeted, we've already expended 745, 29%. That would be alarming. If you took those insurances out, we're right at the 24% because the other expenses in that department are very constant. Next slide, projects and studies. Projects and studies has a disclaimer at the top that says target goal varies with project time. So we can't use our normal percentage because the large projects don't follow that bounce and ball of being consistent through the quarters. You'll see that we started with a budget of only $50,000. It's now 5.6 million. That's due mainly to the rollover of the lead and copper project that the board approved, the I-85 projects that the board approved, and of that we've expended 504,000, 9%. We expect that to be low because some of those projects will linger after this fiscal year. So it won't be 100% even when we hit June 30th. Next department is debt service. Debt service is nearly impossible to track based on a quarterly basis because those debt payments come due at a certain time each year, and some of them are loaded at the end of the year. So of the 3.8 million that's budgeted in that department, we've only expended 300,478%. But I can assure you the debt payments will be paid on time, and it will be 100% when you get to June 30th. Next slide. The I-85 collection project. This is the DEQ DWI ARPA grant. What we do here is a little different than the others because this is a capital project that's ongoing. So you'll see that there's two parts to the I-85 project. The one that is being funded by ARPA money, the 5.7 million the board's awarded to CDM Smith for the engineering for the project. And then when we get to the next slide, we'll see the SGWASA funded 1 million that the board set aside. Since it is cumulative and ongoing, you'll see that I have by fiscal year what we expended. So you'll see that we've expended over the last 3 years. The fiscal year 22-23 amount of nearly 1.9 million, Carl just mentioned to you, was part of our annual audit. To date, we have expended 2.6 million, which is 45% of the grant money. Now, that is not 45% of the 35 million. That's only 45% of the 5.7 that you've awarded to a specific company project at this time. And the ARPA funding matches that. So we have got reimbursed for everything we've expended today. The next slide represents the SGWASA funded expenses related to that project. The board decided to set aside $1 million for certain acquisition, title, legal expenses related to the project. Again, this is cumulative, so you'll see by fiscal year what we expended. As of the end of the first quarter this year, we haven't expended anything out of this account. So all the years cumulative, we expended $63,731, which is 6% of that $1 million set aside. And then we have a kind of a summary slide. I think I'm going through the slides. This is pretty self-explanatory, but basically you saw that the billing revenue is trending with expectations, budget projections, and the rate model projections. So I think we all feel very comfortable, as we said, about those numbers. The non-billing revenue is trending above expectations, with the exception, as I mentioned earlier, of connect fees, but you can see they're being well offset by the other fees in that department. So the non-billing as a cumulative total is well above the 25%. We saw that the interest revenue for the quarter, and we're assuming it will continue to trend that way for the full year. I think the expectations are that it may not rise anymore, but that it will also not decline for the next 3 quarters. So we hope to see a healthy interest earnings for the next 3 quarters as well. Fund balance appropriations for the fiscal year are reasonable. We saw that on that slide. There have been very nominal limits to operating fund balance. The executive director and the operating staff and the finance department are working hard to keep it that way. Departmental expenses, as you saw going through the departments, are materially comparable to the budget. We didn't see anything above 25% that would, and we're holding those down as well this year. So that's a good thing. And with that, we're done with the presentation, and we'll entertain any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
Why did we see an upward trend in non-billing revenue?
Upward trend compared to, when you say upward trend compared to
The
budget,
budget, correct.
we budget certain fees conservatively because we do not know how many return checks, how many late fees, how many non-payment fees we're going to collect. So we budget conservatively. That's one thing.
Okay.
So we always expect that one to be slightly higher than 25%. And the first quarter could trend higher or lower. We don't know. So basically budgeting very conservatively for those fees.
That's all I need to hear.
We would rather keep our budget tight than over budget and want to adapt to some.
This is the first few months of the year, new year. Does that usually trend up during that period of time?
The non-billing revenue, it's fairly consistent on a quarterly basis. It does fluctuate monthly.
Yeah.
But we have seen those trends change over the last 3 to 4 years. It used to be that in the November to December, you saw those non-billing revenues drop, and then you would see them spike back up in January quite significantly. The last couple of years, we haven't seen that trend hold. The last couple of years, it's been more level.
Okay.
And so we would assume that this year would follow that more level trend.
Anybody else? No questions? Miss Jordan, it's good to see you.
Okay.
Second.
If there's no other questions, there's no action required on this item. So thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Richard.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I guess I will turn this over to the executive director for the item number 11, the SGWASA holiday observance schedule.
Thank you. And this is for the 2024 holiday observance schedule, not the 2023, as I've noted on the header, unfortunately. So obviously a copy and paste here or there, but this is for calendar year 2024. And this is information only. We share this with the board annually about this time of year as we're getting ready to get into the new year and the holidays in front of us. And I just want to mention to the board that the 2024 holiday schedule reflects the same holidays observed in 2023. So nothing has been added. Nothing has been deleted, but you see the schedule now on screen in front of you. You also have a copy in your agenda packet this evening. So we've got the whole year laid out for us for 2024. I will answer any questions that the board may have regarding the proposed schedule. And again, it's information for you. No action.
Anybody have any questions?
Great.
No?
The kind of follows suit with suited there.
Good. All right. Item number 12, again, back to the executive director, board of directors meeting.
Well, thank you. This is the SGWASA Board of Directors meeting schedule for 2024. This schedule for calendar year 2024 lays out the meeting schedule for the Board of Directors. Similar to previous years, the board meetings will be held on the second Tuesday of each month, beginning at 6 p.m., located at the Town of Butner Council Chambers. And this item actually requires an action that the Board of Directors approve the 2024 board meeting schedule. And also, please note that we have an asterisk at the February meeting, which is the annual meeting and the election of officers for chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. Happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding the proposed schedule.
Anybody got any questions?
No, for me.
I don't, I make a motion to approve the schedule.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second to approve the schedule. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the ayes have it. And again, the executive director, well, you are just a spotlight victim tonight.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So,
Item number 13.
this item requires a little bit more time and consideration than the previous two items because we were talking about the Mangum Farms Phase 2 allocation transfer request. A lot of information here for the board to observe that's written in the memo. A simple summary is that we have a current owner that holds allocation for the phased subdivision in the town of Stem, and we have a new owner potentially, or a sale for a contractor agreement to sell, and the owner and the buyer are looking to transfer allocation from one to another to go with the property rights. That's basically the transfer that's going on here. If I may, I'll just give you a little bit of the background involving this and just kind of walk you through the steps. So this project involves the Mangum Farms residential subdivision located in Stem. This was originally presented to the South Granville Water and Sewer Authority in 2006 as a 245 division. Mangum Farms proposed the subdivision as a two-phase construction project. Phase 1 of the construction has been completed, whereas Phase 2 has not been completed, but is on the horizon, near term, we are told. Allocation for the entire project, phases 1 and 2, is just over 92,000 gallons per day. Phase 1 is currently consuming about 32,000 gallons per day, leaving a balance of just over 60,000 gallons per day for Phase 2. Just a special note that in terms of the financials further down on the page, in 2006, Mangum Farms Developers LLC paid $167,000 for the Phase 1 and Phase 2 final allocation. So the allocations have been paid for. Some have been used, some have not been used today. So in terms of the analysis section going on, Drapac Capital Partners, Mangum Farms NC LLC, are the current owners of Mangum Farms Phase 2 subdivision. They have a contractual agreement to sell the property to D.R. Horton Incorporated. And then the transferring of the existing water and sewer allocations from Drapac to D.R. Horton is of utmost importance as it guarantees that D.R. Horton Incorporated obtains the necessary vested rights to proceed with the development. We have collected letters from both the current owner and the prospective owner of the property, and both of those letters are attached to your agenda packet this evening. In terms of our allocation policy transfers, the allocation shall be granted to the person or entity making the request and shall not be transferable to any other person or entity without express consent of the SGWASA board. Therefore, that's why you're seeing this item here tonight in front of the board for that request. In terms of the schedule, should the board approve this request, then a letter will be provided from SGWASA to the potential buyer stating the allocation transfer is contingent upon the submission of the recorded deed. Again, in terms of the financials, all the allocation fees have been paid in full as of October 2006. I mentioned the two attachments that we have as far as the letters from the seller and from the buyer. And my recommendation is the board approve the transfer of the previously approved water and sewer allocations from Drapac Capital Partners, Mangum Farms NC LLC to D.R. Horton Incorporated contingent upon submission of the recorded deed after the close of sale. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this transaction or the subdivision itself.
Anyone have any questions?
No, I'm glad to see
Look like you got anything to say?
moving forward with it.
So I agree with this 100% to actually get this finally get bit for this to finally be built. Gray Pack's been dragging their feet for a long time, and I'm glad the sale is going through. Kind of pending this right here because they don't have the water allocation. The sale's not going through. I'm just ready for this to move forward. Yeah.
Okay. And again, this is a deed transfer allocation that we're approving. It's nothing to do with allocating water from one subdivision. This is just a deed transfer transaction.
Okay.
So I'll accept the motion to approve the transfer of the previously approved water and sewer allocation.
Motion to move forward.
Second.
All right. I have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. And we will move on to project updates. Mr. Troyer, would you like to present this?
I sure will. Thank you very much. Item 14 and item 15 this evening. So a couple of projects we want to talk about, which are high priority, high impact projects in no necessary order, except they all fall into that same category. We have our ongoing PFAS testing and mitigation strategies. We've talked a lot about this program for the last several months, specifically looking at how to remove PFAS from the drinking water supply from our lake. Again, this is something that SGWASA does not create. This is something that is environmental and manufactured that's in our water supply. And we are very anxious to moving forward with technologies, including the GAC, which is the granulated activated carbon, reverse osmosis, or ion exchange, either using one of those technologies or a combination of those technologies to move forward and introduce into our system at our water plant to remove the PFAS. We've done a lot of work in the last year in terms of testing, and we've been working with many consultants on this project as well as we're moving forward. As the board is aware, in July of 2023, SGWASA hired engineering consultant CDM Smith to assist SGWASA on its journey with PFAS compliance. CDM Smith was tasked with two items. One was creating a PFAS pilot testing program, and two, submitting on SGWASA's behalf to NCDEQ State Revolving Fund financing / grant applications. I just want you to know that CDM Smith is working on the PFAS pilot testing program to date. The anticipated date of completion for that program is January 1st, and SGWASA is awaiting notification on the two SRF funding applications. It's anticipated that we'll be notified of our status in April or May of 2024. Happy to answer any questions the board may have on that project specifically.
No pictures, no PowerPoint presentation.
Crystal's back, our board secretary, PIO, and
Yes, I
she's
saw
always been
her.
very,
And I'm like, she's
always been very helpful with those. And so I think we will look forward to that at the next meeting.
Do we have our final numbers for PFAS, what the state says our numbers are supposed to be?
No, we do not. The EPA looks to have guidance on that. We are told January, potentially of 2024. So I would assume first quarter of 2024, we may have that guidance. And that'll be very helpful for us then, that we can hone in on the technology or combination of technologies we need to move forward with design and construction. And of course, once we get that guidance that's issued, we'll also get timelines as far as to come into compliance. None of that is known at this point. Of course, as soon as we have it, we'll present it to the board and the public as well, and an action plan on how to proceed to get rid of that PFAS in the water.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Another high priority, high impact project is the I-85 Sanitary Sewer System Improvement Project. The board is very aware of this project we've been working on for several years. Two items: status of the engineering design work. CDM Smith continues to make great progress on this project. The SGWASA staff is meeting with CDM Smith staff on December 14th to review the 90% complete design plan for this project. So that's quite a milestone for us. Right on target, right on schedule with that. Actually, a little bit ahead of schedule, which is good. Following that design meeting, CDM Smith will be completing the design plans in preparation for bidding. Total estimated cost of the project is around $700. Excuse me. First quarter of 2024, CDM Smith will be pre-qualifying construction contractors for this large project. CDM Smith is scheduled to bid the project in 2024. So this is actually something that you'll see next calendar year. I know we've all been waiting for that. More information will be provided in future updates as related to a refined bidding and award construction start dates. And CDM Smith and SGWASA will be holding public information meetings in 2024 to allow the public an opportunity to review the project. I also anticipate CDM Smith being here in front of the board to provide you with a presentation, probably before the public meetings. But as we're getting close to that 90% plan completion, that's the appropriate time to show the plans and what we're doing, talk about the schedules moving forward, construction activities, so on and so forth. We continue to work on getting the permits that we need for this project. And we've had several meetings with the communities around us just to talk about construction interference, if you will. How many streets can we close during an operation? What do the detours look like? Those type of things. So we're starting to do that communication now so that we can incorporate those schedules into the bidding documents so that we don't clash during our 2 years of construction. And that's about what it will take when we get to that project. The other part of the project is the status of the USDA loan application. So CDM Smith and SGWASA have been working with the USDA on a loan package application for the past 18 months. The application was officially accepted by the USDA in April of 2023. USDA has indicated they would and should have a final loan proposal to SGWASA in the next few months. So I'm anticipating something here by the end of the year, possibly the 1st of January. And keep in mind, this will be a proposal that comes back to the organization. We will most likely consider this in the finance committee environment to have that discussion, bring that recommendation to the board, have that discussion as well. And I'm sure there will be some follow-up documents regarding that loan. So we're although I'd like to have that information to you this evening, I think we're still on track considering the project itself and our construction timelines ahead of us. Be happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding that project.
We've got any legal issues with the easements and stuff so far? We've been notified of any?
Jim, anything you want to comment? You're kind of a leader on that project for us as well, a partner.
We're working through all of the various issues. We're getting the surveys in and reviewing those and reviewing title.
Okay.
So we're working with the land agent. We'll begin the acquisition process before long.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
All right. Comments from the executive director.
Thank you. Again, this evening, I'd like to thank Carlene Evans for the fine work that she did on the SGWASA financial audit and for tonight's presentation. I know she's not here this evening, but again, just want to thank her for that. And the same for you, Richard. Thank you for your presentation this evening and your work related to the audit tasks. Crystal, our PIO board secretary, welcome back. Glad that you're here in official board capacity. We've got some work to do on next month's presentation for engineering project. And board members, thank you for the approvals this evening on the projects and the items that we presented to keep us moving forward. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any comments from our attorney tonight?
No comments unless you have questions.
Will you be available for us to go into closed session
Sure.
and attorney-client privilege?
Sure.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Comments from board members. Mr. McKellar.
No comments.
No comments.
No more comments.
Mr. Commissioner Wedge.
No, ma'am, I don't have anything tonight.
Commissioner McLean.
Just want to say thank you to everybody with SGWASA. You're all doing a great job. Numbers look great. Thank you for that. And keep up the good work.
All right. Councilperson Linda Jordan.
No comments this evening?
I think that's the last time I can call you that. And for myself, I want to thank all the staff at SGWASA for the presentations and the work that you do to put stuff together for us. I know sometimes it seems timely, but it is truly appreciated. Crystal, I am so glad I don't have to ask Scott when is Crystal coming back tonight. This is the first time in a long time. But we are glad to see and look forward to those awesome presentations that you do for us. And that's all I've got, Scott. I know that this has been difficult wearing 4 hats. And I appreciate, I'm glad that one hat has resigned and Crystal's back,
Yep.
but you've done a great job throughout. And
Thank you.
we appreciate you very much.
I
And
appreciate
from what I've been told from our senior members of this board, SGWASA has never run this well. My first
Thank you.
4 years on this board have been a pleasure, and I think you have made it that way.
Thank you. I
it very
appreciate your
much.
comments. Thank you.
All right, if there's no further business to come before the board, I will accept a motion to go into closed session.
Motion.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of closed session, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Adjourned. We are now back in open session. Is there anything else to be brought before the board? Anybody? I will accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? None? All right. We're adjourned.
Great.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.